implementing ERP. So define your goals and objectives. So at the beginning of the project, you wanna think about what does it mean to be successful when we're completed. And sometimes what can happen is customers can think of success criteria. And so a vendor will say, give me your 5 top things that define success, or your top 10 things that define success. Way too many times I've heard companies say, oh, I want better reporting or quicker access to information. Well, what does better reporting mean, right? I want to increase my sales. Okay, by what? Or I want to cut down and streamline closing my month end from an accounting perspective. Okay, great. So you need to document what is the metric today. So it takes me 10 days to close my books. Okay, my goal is to cut that down to 7. I want better reporting. Well, what does that mean? That means I want to be able to get a sales analysis report every Monday on my desk by 8 o'clock. So define what those look like. So then at the end of the project, and say 6 months after, 12 months after, you can run that benefits realization, as we call it, to then say, hey, are we realizing the benefit? Are we meeting our goals and objectives, and were we successful? Create a detailed plan. So this is a good one that ties into your implementation plan. And part of that can be, I need a communications plan, a risk management plan, a rollout plan, a responsibilities plan. So there's lots of plans that fit inside of an implementation plan from a project management perspective. But by doing that, you're going to be ready for anything that comes at you. Involve stakeholders. So again, you want to have people from different departments maybe being involved and creating what's called a steering committee. So you may have someone from finance and IT and from the warehouse and from procurement and from sales and from the manufacturing. All those different individuals are going to have a different stake in the success of the implementation. So you want to bring them all together so they're all being updated at the same time and can collaborate and work as a team to move through the project. And typically they may meet, depending on the length of the project, every maybe 2 or 3 times throughout the project. That's not a weekly thing for a steering committee meeting, but you'll have a project team meeting that you might meet every week or multiple times a week that are more hands-on to the project. Establish a dedicated team. So as I said there, that team will meet more frequently. They're the ones working with the vendor. They're the ones hands-on with the implementation, doing the setup, testing the system, making sure things are moving through accordingly. And yes, test the system thoroughly. So, test, and test again is the philosophy. The last thing you want to do is have end users go live with the system, and the first time they do something, it fails or they get an error message. Excuse me. You really want to make sure that you test the system before it goes to the next level. There's also what's called user acceptance testing. So this is a good system test to make sure that the system's set up correctly, the security for those users are set up correctly, and that those key end users or subject matter expert users know what they're doing so then they can help the rest of the team accordingly. So test. Provide training and support. So this is an area where you don't want to skimp on. You want to make sure people get trained and they have support. So if something happens, they know who to go to directly. This can include creating training manuals or having standard operating procedures. I've even seen it where there's training videos. So we'll do a session and you'll record the session through Teams or Zoom that new employees and periodically people can go back and watch. Sometimes that's easier than going through a user guide. That's user preference at that point. Or if you say every month I'm going to bring the vendor in for an hour to do a Q&A session with all my users. So bring all your questions and let's train. And then monitor and review progress. So as you're going through, you're going to be having status reports. You're going to be meeting as a group. You want to make sure that the project is moving on pace and it's not being too slow, because what can happen is if you start slowing down and it's not going as quickly, users can lose interest and vendors can end up spending more money, which will eat the budget to then now all of a sudden, when you get closer towards the end, that could be an issue. So as we move